Hi everyone, my name is Robert Sloan. I'm the Executive Principal at Lodge Park Academy in Corby. I've been here at Lodge Park for about 2.5 years now. Before that I was Principal at Charles Reid Academy near Grantham in Lincolnshire. Both schools are part of the David Ross Education Trust, and I'm going to be talking to you today about creating a school culture. And when I say talking, I mean generally just talking. I am just going to ramble on a bit about school culture and my experience. This is not about all the research around school culture. If you wanted to do that, Google is there for you, and there's lots of great blogs, articles and research around school culture, and lots of interesting things to read about that. So maybe you might want to do that after you've listened to me. You might think, what a load of nonsense that guy's talking, or you might think, oh, actually some of those things make quite a bit of sense. So first of all, I want to just think about what is school culture, because it's a phrase that we hear a lot. The culture at this school is like this, or the culture at my child's school is all about homework. The culture at my school where I went to was really horrible because there was lots of bullying. So we've all got our different perceptions of what school culture is about, and I think sometimes people get them mixed up with just elements of things that happen at a school, and we focus on that. And then there are some broader words like the culture at school is one of high aspirations. The culture of a school is about respect and tolerance. I think it's really difficult to actually measure a school culture. I think that there is research where you can see people have set out parameters that they measure school culture against, and I think it's very specific to the person really that's talking from their own experiences. So you might talk to a head teacher in a school and they might talk about their school culture. You might talk to a pupil in a school and get some completely different version of it. You might talk to a member of staff, get something in between. You might talk to another member of staff who talks again something that's not what the head teacher said. And I think that's the challenge around school culture, is because everyone comes at it from their own point of view. How is this culture of the school impacting on them? So really to say we're going to have one measurement of school culture, I think would be quite difficult to do. And then we have to think about who creates a school culture. Is it the pupils, is it the community, or is it the adults in the building? For me, it's very much should be about the adults. It should be the adults manifesting the culture so that the pupils can then partake in the culture and continue to develop it. Ultimately, what culture is, it's shared values and beliefs. It's shared values and beliefs that everyone in the school can understand and try and enact. And that's the thing that really defines a school culture, is how well are those values and beliefs enacted. There is a nice iceberg analogy. It's not a good presentation unless you do an iceberg analogy, isn't it? So first thing about school culture is what we call level one culture. What do you see? What can you see and experience as soon as you go to a school? So it could be that you start thinking about the school culture because you get in the car park and you see that there's a big sign that says principal's parking space, vice principal's parking space, and you might think, okay, so maybe the principal thinks he's more important than everyone else. Well, ultimately they are the principal, they've got a lot more responsibility than everyone else, but actually that might start giving you some perceptions about the school culture. It might be when you go into reception, it might be about how the person on reception meets and greets you, how welcome you feel. When you walk around, is there litter on the floor, or is it spotless? Is the work on the wall, is there nice displays celebrating people's work, or is it quite plain and dull, or is it run down and dirty? And they're the things that we can measure around school culture. The other things are just below the surface about those values and beliefs, and do we see them being acted out? If we say at our school the culture is of politeness, then when we talk to people, are they polite? If we say that the expectations are high when we go into classrooms, do we see that there's good challenge in lessons, and we see that the teachers are really delivering high quality lessons that are really pushing students? Sitting below all that is obviously everyone's individual fundamental beliefs about schools, about education and about society. And they might not be overtly obvious to people, but those beliefs exist, and part of the challenge around creating a school culture is about getting those underlying beliefs to align with the values and beliefs that leaders want the school to enact and that want to be part of the culture of the school. So how do we change or create culture? Well, first of all, recognizing that it's difficult to change a culture, if that culture is quite ingrained. So, if you might get the response, we've always done it this way. This is how we always do it. And that's something really that leaders need to challenge if you want to change a culture, and helping people to recognise when a culture needs to change. So I experienced going to a school where to the front of the school they had nice, quite suburban houses, tree-lined avenues. The back of the school, quite an estate where there was low-income families, and some challenges on that estate. And they used to let the kids from that school come in through the back gate over the school field. And immediately when I went to the school, the staff would talk to me about back gate kids and front gate kids. And I was saying, whoa, this is a massive red flag to me. The culture of the school here is that you are already you're already segregating your pupils by where they live. You're already labelling them by where they live. And we should be really open about challenging those fundamental beliefs that exist in schools, especially if we're going into a new school, and making sure that people understand why some beliefs would be damaging to the culture and the ethos of the school. So be brave, and be brave to challenge it to staff and students as well. If you want to create a culture, then you've got to be open about what you want to achieve. Don't forget the physical culture as well. So your buildings, we don't all have wonderful PFS, BFI, whatever it's called these days, buildings, but make the most of what you've got. Get it tidy, give it a lick of paint, show it value, because your building is sort of the physical embodiment of your culture, isn't it? So if you allow a broken window to remain broken for 3 or 4 months, then everyone's going to just think you don't care. And ultimately, what does that say about your culture if your staff and your pupils don't feel like you care? Consistency is really important. So challenging values and beliefs. So we can't force our values and beliefs on people, nor would we want to, but challenging where people are exhibiting behaviours that don't fit in with the values and beliefs that you've set out for the school, where people are not enacting the culture that you're trying to create, and doing that in a really respectful way. So make sure you set up your systems for challenge. One thing we did is we came up with a document called the Lodge Park Way. We did it with other schools from the trust, and it really set out explicitly what we would expect to see, and how we would support and challenge staff who weren't doing that, and how that if one member of staff is not being consistent, then that lets down the next member of staff. So for example, you've been teaching for 25 years and you can manage behaviour really easily, and you don't think that you should have to give out a consequence for someone shouting out, but the NQT next door is really struggling. And if you don't give a consequence, then the kids in his class say, well, why do they have to give a consequence? So that consistency is really important to a good, strong school culture, in my opinion. And a culture where everyone's valued is important. I think where I've experienced negative cultures is where staff have felt that they're more important than the students. Well, the culture that I would want in any school is that the absolute everything you do is around the experience of the pupils. Their daily experience, from the minute they walk through the door to the minute they leave, or the minute they finish after school club, to the outcomes that they get when they leave in year 11 or year 13. It's all about the students. And where I've worked in some schools where the culture wasn't right, is that actually it was more about what can the school do for the adults in the building, and that for me was just the wrong way around, and challenging that was really important. And what that doesn't mean is that you don't value the adults, you don't value the teachers. You cannot achieve great things for your students if you don't create a culture where adults are valued. And I'm not just talking about teachers, I'm talking about your support staff, I'm talking about the dinner ladies, I'm talking about the cleaners. Everyone working together for the goals of those children. That's the sort of culture that I've tried to create in the schools that I've worked at. Managing behaviour is really important. I won't go on about this too long, but if you allow poor behaviour, then your culture will be undermined. So if you say you've got high aspirations for students and that's part of your school culture, then why would you have low aspirations for behaviour? And really getting the systems right to support staff to manage behaviour effectively, so they can concentrate on their jobs of teaching and learning and supporting students passively, is really important. So make sure all procedures are clear, make sure that they're all really simple, but followed consistently. And then, deliberate practice, make that part of your school culture. If you want to get things right, then a culture of practicing when we get things wrong is fairly normal to me. And of course, for myself and for my senior leaders, I've got to see people modelling the behaviours you want from students. You want them to be polite, you've got to be polite for them. You want them to be smart, you've got to be smart. Have high expectations and model for students and staff. As part of the thing that I've done is I've really always wanted to be that role model for others, for staff and students in everything I do. And I say, whether that's walking the corridors, doing the duties, meeting the parents, and one thing that I've always done as part of my creation of culture is getting in the classroom and teaching, showing people that actually, if I want to create a culture where there's good behaviour in classrooms and there's high expectations of teaching, I've got to model that. I've got to say to people, come and see my lessons. And talking about that respectful challenge, it's great when we have some trainee teachers come into our lessons and they say, well, actually you didn't do that, and that's fine, because that's a really respectful way of challenging my expectations and then learning and then going on to be consistently good teachers. Getting buy-in from staff and pupils and parents, well, of course that's important. It won't work if you don't get that buy-in. So just be really honest about why. Building relational trust, communication, communicate the why about everything. And I say, where people feel valued, that means that they have an input in that. It doesn't mean they're always going to get what they want, but you've got to listen to the staff and you've got to listen to the students and the community. And sometimes you have to say, yeah, I understand what you're trying to achieve, but actually for the overall culture and expectations of school, we need to do this. And that's your job as leaders. And hopefully, if you're not a leader yet, that's something that you might be thinking about if you going on to be leaders. Celebrating personal success is really important for both pupils and staff. A great culture of celebration is something that I think is really important, such as we do here at our Lodge Park appreciation assemblies. We get people to nominate students who've worked really well, and that could be parents that are nominating them for things they've done at home as well. And of course, investing in professional development and making sure you do it properly, because there's nothing more devaluing to teachers and staff than giving them really poor professional development, because, as I said before, valuing the staff is super important to getting those things right for your culture and for pupils. So it's been a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of my thoughts on school culture. I'd love to hear from you, so be part of the conversation. My Twitter is @BobSloan79. So do tag me in a tweet if you want to talk more about school culture. I'd love to hear from you. So I hope you enjoy all the sessions, and I look forward to hearing from you.